Thank you very much. We gather here at a critical time in the evolving story of humanity's existence on this finite planet of ours, a planet whose climate we are changing. For the first time in human history, a majority of us now lives in cities. So, the urgent call for a more sustainable future and also urbanization are now joined in one critical movement, and it is a movement that cries out for more effective governance and a new way of leadership. 40 years ago, Robert F. Kennedy said that it is from the numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time a man stands up for others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. Well, over 40 years ago, that was true, but it's not quite so true anymore. Those diverse acts of courage, they're not so longer numberless. We can number them. Not only can we number them, we can map them. Not only can we number and map them, we can measure the individual ripple, its individual effect, and the cumulative effect of many ripples that amount to a tidal wave of change. There are two key developments in technology that have come about relatively recently that have dovetailed really to change the whole nature of leadership and governance. They are our ability to model belief space and the ability to uplink individual actions through the cloud. Let me explain what I mean. Belief space and the cloud. This is a map. In fact, it's a screenshot from my iPad. Every Monday morning, I travel to Georgetown University across the rush hour of two big metro areas. And if you lived in North Baltimore in my neighborhood, and I told you where I was headed in the morning, my neighbors would tell me, "Oh, you can't get there from here." So what do? I do what we all do now. We don't even think about it. I plug in the address, and a little voice in my iPad, let's call her Mary, tells me exactly which way to go and how to get there quickest. And you know what? Mary's never wrong. And sometimes the map changes, right? Individual effects, road closures, accidents, those sorts of things, the speed with which other people are traveling across the road in front of me, all of those things get uplinked into the cloud and come back into the belief space that tells me how to get to my destination relatively on time if I left relatively on time. All of these are new technologies. Our kids may think they were here forever. They watched the little Uber car come to them and assumed that that's always the way it was. But you know, back in 1999, when these new technologies were admittedly rather primitive and just kind of dawning, I was elected mayor of Baltimore City at a critical time in our city's history. In 1999, we had become the most violent, the most addicted, and the most abandoned city in America. And with 88 days to go and 7% name recognition, I ran for mayor against two much more popular and better-known African-American candidates. Then, as now, Baltimore City is a majority African-American city. Then, as now, I am white. So these things just weren't done then. But we ran a campaign about justice and injustice. The injustice being that we shrugged our shoulders and acted like there was nothing we could do about 350 young African-American men dying violent deaths on our street. We believed that we could change that. And we saw that they were already changing that in other cities. We saw what they had done in New York with performance-measured policing, putting the dots on the map where the crime was actually happening, regardless of race, and deploying police assets, detectives, patrol, doing it in a timely fashion, bringing people together in collaborative circles with a cadence of accountability around that emerging truth of crime to take better actions, to save more lives. And after winning that race, we set out to implement that in Baltimore. Now, when I won that race, I won actually all 6 of the council districts, including those of my 2 opponents. And the Washington Post greeted my come-from-behind against all odds victory with this headline: "White man wins Mayor of Baltimore." And the next day, they apologized in print for the first time and the last time they ever apologized to me. And ironically, it was for a 100% accurate headline. So when I was sworn into office, we had to act. We had to act quickly. Not only did we implement this new way of governing in our police department, not only did we set Baltimore on a path for the largest reduction in crime over the next 10 years of any major city in America, we asked ourselves, what if? What if we also used this same method of collaboration and getting things done when it came to trash, when it came to potholes, when it came to identifying where children were poisoned by lead year in and year out, and yet we acted like there was nothing we could do about it? So we brought this new way of governing enterprise-wide for the first time in a big American city. We dubbed it CityStat, CiTISTAT, for those of you spelling along at home. And if you were to Google that word, you'd find it popping up with 350,000 entries all across the country, indeed around the world. In fact, almost all big cities in America now have a 311 center on the front end for citizen complaints, and they operate on the back end with that collaborative map of performance measurement, that dynamic model of belief space. There is emerging all across our country a new way of leadership. The old ways of leadership, oftentimes ideological, bureaucratic, hierarchical, command and control, those are fading away. And a new way of leadership is emerging. It is fundamentally entrepreneurial. It is collaborative. It is relentlessly performance measured and ever more interactive with citizens. And the great hope, of course, is with deeper understanding, all of us can take better actions as individuals to affect the sort of change we want for our children and grandchildren. You know, there was a time, just 15 years ago, before the information age, when the only place for an effective leader to be would be at the top of that pyramid of command and control, that point of authority, where the leader knew everything and had the information 6 months before everybody else. Well, those days are fading away. The information age is kissing those days goodbye. You know, the great Shimon Peres, now of blessed memory, once said to me, in the information age, citizens now know more than their leaders. And what's more, they know it before their leaders. In the information age, the only place of situational advantage, if you want to call it that, I call it only place of leadership effectiveness, is for the leader to put him or herself in the middle of the emerging truth, that collaborative map, in a circle of collaboration, with the willingness and the vulnerability to ask, what are we doing? How do we know it works? In the old days, things got done on the basis of the rule of, because I said so. In the new age, things only get done on the basis of, because I can show you it works. Let me show you one example. You know, the hope, as I indicated before, with all of us connected to this, is that we all take better actions. For the last 350 years in the state of Maryland, we have been taking actions on either side of the largest estuary in North America. It's the Chesapeake Bay. I want to talk to you about water, a big body of water. On one side of the bay, some of the most dense human population and development that you'll find anywhere in our country. In fact, we've paved over more acres in the last 35 years than we did in the first 350 years of our existence. On the Eastern Shore, heavy agriculture. How do we change that? Well, unlike crime, where the goal was put the dots on the map, reduce crime. What we have to reduce in the Chesapeake Bay are the things caused by our own actions. The inflow of nitrogen, phosphorus, sedimentary pollution. And so what did we do? We modeled the Chesapeake Bay. Belief space, a map divided by 10 different watersheds in the state of Maryland. We arrayed a suite of 36 actions that we knew would reduce those harmful flows of pollutants into the bay. And instead of having a 40-year hope that we'd clean up the bay, we set a 2-year deadline, a goal. In fact, the difference between a dream and a goal is a deadline. And we brought people together in a cadence of accountability, asking every 2 weeks, are we doing better on cover crops, doing better on upgrading our sewage treatment plants, curbing septic sprawl than we were doing before. And as a result, last year, the health of the Chesapeake Bay was the best it's been since 1985. In fact, that might be the first improvement in the health of the bay in 350 years. One of the things that we also did, and this is a word on scale. A lot of times we human beings get intimidated by scale. Place matters to us. Our homes, our neighborhoods. We can be intimidated by scale. But the beauty of this new technology is it's not intimidated by scale. We set out to map the remaining ecologically valuable parcels of land in the bay so we could preserve them. The forest cover, the stream buffers, and the like. We spent about 4 or 5 years uncorking previously closed data sets, and we came up with the Maryland Green Print, an ecological ranking of every parcel of land in our state. We colored the dark green, and we made this so everyone in the state could see where it was, and we showed our green print. The dark green we had preserved, the light green we still had to preserve, either through land use or open space or other actions into the future. And now, the entire United States of America has access to the same information, the same data sets, and we can scale up a national green print. Conclusion. Look, on this planet of ours, there is no independent salvation. We need each other. We need each other to take better actions, choose to achieve better results, need to get things done. There is a future awaiting us, and we're not going to reach that future by having debates over whether we move left or right. It's about moving forward. True story. When I was first elected mayor, I used to, on 1 week, go out in community associations, groups like this sometimes, in high school gymnasiums, 2 microphones, called Mayor's Nights Out. Ask me anything, sort of, right? But then in the alternating weeks, we would bring neighborhood leaders in to our CitiStat room, the big command room, where for the first time, we could show people the big maps of where the potholes are, where the complaints about illegal dumping and trash were. And invariably, at every one of these meetings, whether the group of leaders we brought in were from the north side of town or south or east or west, whether they were predominantly black or predominantly white, wealthy or poor, there was one question that would always come up from the crowd, usually about minute or 7 or 8 into my map show. And that question was, Mayor, can you show me my house? Huh? Show me my house. It's a good question. It's an essential question. In fact, it's the only question for a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Show me my house. The freedom of the Exodus story of the Bible was not merely a freedom from oppression. It was a freedom for full participation. Show me my house. Sometimes instead of a question, it was a demand. Show me my house. Within each of us is a soul that yearns for recognition, to live in the fullness of community. Our future is a future that we will make together. It's a future that our children need for us to make today. New leadership, a new way of governing. Because while it will take individual action and individual collaboration, make no mistake about it, it will also require a new way of leadership and a more effective way of governing. For surely the way we treat the earth affects all people, and how we treat one another is reflected in how we treat the earth. Thank you.